Hey, you have a minute? Hello everyone, my name is Orphid, and how are you all? This video here is going to be the start of the new series I was mentioning in the last video, and really quickly I just want to kind of go over what the series is going to be about and what you can expect anytime you see a video appear in your feed with the title, "Hey, do you have a minute?" I'll go over various topics in most cases. Sometimes it could be just one big topic, mostly gaming related. Sometimes it may not be gaming related. That's the joy of it, is it just could be anything. The title will usually give it away, but if you just want to hear me talk, this is your space, champ. Another thing I heavily encourage with this series is engagement. I want you guys to be commenting, to leave your thoughts, touch on the things that I talk about in these episodes. I just really want it to be a space where we can, share ideas. You can just get a chance to interact a lot more, and this is, I think, the perfect kind of video to do that for. So if you give the video a watch, definitely leave a comment, man. I would love to read them all. So we are going to start off with the first topic in this video, and it is going to be some new game development studios popping up. So I will leave articles in the description where they are relevant to the topics that I bring up. And this first one is going to be a new studio being formed by the name of Giant Skull. And the CEO of the studio is Stig Asmussen. I believe that's how you say his name. He's mostly known for his work on God of War, specifically God of War 3. He was the creative director there, and recently he worked at Respawn, and he was a game director on the Star Wars Jedi games that came out recently, Survivor and Fallen Order. If you've played those games, you know those are pretty big games. Very, very highly touted games as well. Critically successful, commercially successful, really big IPs. And with this guy being at the head of it, alongside some talent from other studios like Rocksteady, Epic Games, Riot Games, this is really promising. So the focus that they have for the titles they want to make are action AAA games. Action adventure focused AAA games. And he said the first one that they're looking to work on is exactly that, a AAA single player focused action game in Unreal Engine 5. Now, I'm noting this specifically because of those works on his previous games, being the absolutely fantastic God of War 3, as well as Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I have not played Survivor, but I'm pretty sure that game is very good. At some point I will get around to it, but seeing the caliber of those games and him getting his own studio to focus on that type of game, me personally, I would be excited for whatever project they put out, because if you play God of War 3, man, that game is unbelievable. The scale of the Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order game as well, unbelievable. Really high production values with the IPs that they were, working with. So getting full creative control over your own studio and being able to make your own game when you have that kind of track record is always exciting. So that's the first studio that I want to highlight. The second studio is called Empty Vessel, and it's comprised of former employees from Naughty Dog, id Software, and Activision. And the main focus of this company, as of their first game, is going to be a sci-fi shooter, which I'm a sucker for sci-fi shooters. So this is very good news. And if that wasn't enough to get you hyped, final piece of information absolutely has to. They have Mick Gordon on as their composer. Let me show you what Mick Gordon does. Pretty fucking sick. So just wanted to put a quick highlight on a couple new studios that popped up chance to see some very interesting games come out of them. And as we hear more things in the future, expect to hear from me, provided, the showings and announcements are noteworthy. But we will hear about these guys soon, I'm sure. The next thing I wanted to talk about is something that has been unfortunately plaguing the game industry for a while now, and it has been the layoff situation. A lot of people, a lot of people have been losing their jobs recently, being a part of these development teams. I think the number has actually gone upwards of like 7,000 or 8,000 since 2023, I believe. And it's really bad. It's almost as if every week there is some announcement of a studio laying off, 10% of their staff, and we're downsizing this much and this many employees are being let go. It's really shitty. Now I just want to start it off by saying, it's never a good situation when someone loses their job. It really sucks, especially in a space where you care about, you want to see these developers have a space and you want to see them create games. So to be hearing about so many people losing their jobs, it really does suck. And it sucks even more for me because I know at the center of it, it's all profit driven, right? Like a lot of these companies can absolutely afford to pay these developers without having to let them go, but it makes the bottom line look that much sweeter. So that's what happens, unfortunately. But more specifically, I just wanted to kind of dive into what this could mean going forward and what I hope it shows, the industry at large and consumers who maybe get a chance to hear about this news and, actually have some kind of stance on it. And the first thing is really that I hope these studios can refocus and realize that the current model, the current AAA game model, is unsustainable. And this mostly comes from I believe it was a podcast where Sean Layden was on. He was one of the heads of PlayStation some years back, and he talked about how the current model of AAA games is unsustainable, how these games have these massive budgets of hundreds of millions of dollars. The marketing balloons upwards of hundreds of millions of dollars. And they come out, they do well. They'll do well commercially and critically, but they barely make back the money that went into the development and the marketing costs. And if you keep doing that in a cycle, eventually it's going to get to a point where in order to see profits, you're going to have to start laying people off. You're going to have to downsize, you're going to have to cut back on a lot of things. And it's one of those things where why allow it to get to that point when you can realize where the issues are beforehand and start to kind of course correct, right? And I'm hoping that since we've actually went through the big shock of the layoffs, that can start to, come to a head. And this doesn't mean no more AAA games ever. No, that's not what it means at all. It means to be more realistic when it comes to studios and these publishers and the investors and, what it is to put out a game in the first place. Because like I said, nowadays it's definitely profit driven, right? They want to make money. When you're a public company, you have investors, shareholders, they are essentially putting their money into a bucket that they believe will start filling up with money. And certain things has to happen in order for money to start going into that bucket. Meaning you have to chase trends, or you have to make decisions for your game that isn't necessarily the best for that game, but it's the best to get more dollars in that bucket so that the investors and the shareholders are happy. And what I want is for people to return to a more grounded mindset and realize that games were made to be enjoyed. Games are an art form as well, whether or not you would like to admit that they are. And at the end of the day, it's a creative process that others are supposed to experience and want to give you their money for. So it has to be worth something in the first place. And the current AAA model with these free-to-play games and these battle passes and these fucking egregious microtransactions with skins that cost $30 and $40. It's slop. That's what it is. It's slop. And it's gotten to a point for me personally where I am just absolutely I'm detested when I see that shit. Anytime I see an ad for a new Homelander skin in Call of Duty, that shit it genuinely it ain't gonna say it makes me angry, it's not that serious, but I hate it. I don't like it. It's slop, man. It's the worst shit ever. And it's I don't want that to be what games are known for. So you can get on Fortnite and see Batman and fucking Goku hit the gritty, while you pay $20 for those skins in the battle pass. It just thinking about that as the direction of gaming primarily, which is where all the money is, which is where all the people are, which is the experiences that developers think they need to put out in order to succeed in this space. It doesn't sit right with me. I understand there is a market for that. Times change. I'm not one of those people who try to hold on to the past or anything like that. I get it. But when you have situations like Rocksteady, take for example, Warner Brothers, very, very greedy company. Fuck that company. Look at what happened with Suicide Squad and Rocksteady. It's a very sad situation to see where they came from making the Arkham games, which literally brought superhero games back as a valid form of a game that people are willing to spend their money on and be excited for. The games that came out before then were just fucking cash grabs. Any type of licensed superhero game was absolutely a cash grab. And when the Batman Arkham games came out, they showed that hey, these could still be fun games. And now you get that personal connection with the IP. So then from that point, we started to see better superhero games. And look what that turned into. Corporate fucking slop, eventually. Exactly where we left from, just licensed garbage. And that's the point I'm making, is I'm hoping that it shows them that, okay, if we're gonna downsize and try to cut costs and all this, let's make better games and give people a reason to buy from our studio and put money into our developers' pockets and keep these guys afloat so we don't have to do these massive layoffs. And a perfect example of that would be studios like Larian. I'm not gonna get into the whole history lesson and go super in depth, but Larian I applaud Larian so much, and the guy that runs that company, Sven Vinke, he is, dude, if you can find a video on YouTube, one better than what I could explain about the history of Larian Studios and where they came from to where they are now with Baldur's Gate, it is incredible. And that's the kind of stories and situations I want for these developers moving forward, because I love games, man. I don't want them to go anywhere. And it hurts me significantly every single time when I see corporate slop in the video game space. So that shit is a no-no, and it needs to go. Before I move on from this topic, a couple of other games I wanted to mention and applaud for, their recent success, despite the trends of the video game industry right now, is games like Helldivers 2, Power World. Again, games that remind you that, hey, we can charge a reasonable, fair price and give you a fun experience. The whole reason you buy the fucking game, and not just trying to nickel and dime you every chance they get for some ridiculously overpriced skin or some collaboration. I'm gonna move on before I get too angry, but that's this section. Is essentially talking about the layoff situation and how it sucks, but I'm hoping it can be a signal for better times to come in the future. But we will have to wait and see. And I'm hoping we just start to get more good news out of these development studios as opposed to bad news and layoffs. Now, the last thing I want to quickly talk about is the recent footage that's been popping up online recently of the online Spider-Man game. One of the things I want to start off by saying is the comments that I've seen that have said that this looked like it was very intentional, that it looked like it was put out there just to gauge people's interest and kind of see if this was something that the public wanted. I do want to mention that there was the big cyber attack on Insomniac fairly recently that resulted in a massive data breach, and I believe it was terabytes of files were essentially put out to the public. So it could have been footage and ideas from that. It could be both. I don't really care. That's not the point. But a lot of people are obviously looking at that as something to be excited for. And this section of the video is basically just to kind of ask, is that something we want? We know that the Spider-Man games have a very good foundation. They have a good base. The IP is very strong. But is a live service game something we really want? Like, I mean, realistically, how much could you put into those games that would offer substance outside of like the combat and the web swinging, which is enough. I get it. There's times where I used to launch the Spider-Man games just to swing around, right? Like, I know there's absolutely somebody out there who would pick those up to be able to play as their favorite Spider-Man, to just be able to do those basic activities. But what I'm trying to say is the potential to just have it be a platform to sell like alternate skins and new characters. I feel like it wouldn't be done justice. Now, I don't know these developers. I don't know what their intentions are. They could very well make the best online Spider-Man game that we've ever seen, better than we could imagine. But I just can't help but think if it was actually a thing, it would just result in the same kind of stuff we've been seeing recently from the likes of Suicide Squad. I know that's kind of the cynical part of me thinking, but I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, would you play an online Spider-Man game where you get to pick your favorite character, Peter, Miles, Gwen, whatever, and just play with your friends, swing around? As I say it out loud, it sounds like a good time, but who knows? Like I said, I don't know if the game is actually a thing, if it's purely just concept, but they had a lot of stuff in the footage that they put out. Like, it looked like it was fairly far along in development, so we'll see. I mean, I'm pretty sure Sony would absolutely want an IP like that to get into the live service space, considering they've been wanting to have more games in the live service space. So it absolutely wouldn't surprise me if we saw it as an official announcement sometime soon. But I just wanted to quickly touch it since I was just coming off the topic of developers losing jobs and the industry trending towards live service games with egregious monetization, and the cynical tone definitely rubbed off on the Spider-Man online game, if it's even real. But again, only time will tell. So those are all the topics that I had for this first episode. Again, format being just turn on the mic, talk about some things that's going on with gaming or not gaming, whatever it may be, and get a chance to hear from you guys. If you have any thoughts, definitely I encourage you to leave comments. I will read them, I will respond, unless you're Jeffrey, which I probably will not respond. Once again, I want to thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening with me. Until next time, you take care.